They laughed when they heard the claims. Japanese POWs couldn't believe what Americans said about their factories. Impossible, they whispered, shaking their heads in their prison camps during World War II. They'd been told Japan's industrial might was unmatched, superior, unbeatable in every way. But then the Americans did something unexpected, something that would shatter everything these soldiers believed about their homeland's power. They took them to see it with their own eyes. The mockery. The prisoners sat in their camp, bored, defeated, but still proud. American guards told them stories about factories, stories about production numbers. "We build one bomber every hour," the guards said. The Japanese soldiers laughed. They actually laughed out loud. Some shook their heads. Others whispered to each other in Japanese. "American lies," one prisoner said. "Propaganda to make us feel weak." These men had been trained from childhood. Japan was superior. Japan was destined to rule Asia. Japan's factories were the best in the world. How could Americans, soft, lazy Americans, possibly build more than the mighty Japanese empire? One older prisoner had worked in a factory back home. He knew what real industrial power looked like. "They're trying to break our spirits," he told the younger soldiers. "Don't believe their fantasy numbers." The guards just smiled. They knew something the prisoners didn't. Something that would change everything. Then one morning, an announcement came. "Pack your things. You're going on a trip." The mystery journey. The buses arrived at dawn. Big, silver, American-made. Guards ordered the prisoners to board. No explanation, no details, just get on the bus. The POWs looked at each other, confused, suspicious. Where were they going? Some prisoners thought it was a trick. Maybe they were being moved to a worse camp. Maybe something terrible was about to happen. The buses drove for hours, through American towns, past farms, past homes with neat yards and children playing. One prisoner noticed something strange. The roads were smooth, really smooth, better than roads back in Japan. "Where are they taking us?" a young soldier whispered. Nobody answered. Nobody knew. The buses kept driving, out of the countryside, into a city. Buildings got taller, streets got busier. Then they saw it. In the distance, something massive. Something that stretched as far as they could see. A factory. But not just any factory. This was different. It looked bigger than their entire hometown. The revelation begins. They walked through the gates. Their mouths dropped open. The Willow Run factory stretched nearly a mile long. 1 mile. Under one roof. This can't be real," one prisoner muttered. The noise hit them first. Loud. Constant. The sound of thousands of workers and machines working together like a giant orchestra. Then they saw the size, the scale. It was impossible to see the other end of the building. American workers walked past them, men and women, young and old, all wearing work clothes, all moving with purpose. "Women?" a Japanese officer said, shocked. "Women are building weapons?" Back in Japan, women didn't work in factories like this. Only men did the heavy industrial work. But here, women operated machines, welded metal, assembled parts. They looked competent, skilled, professional. The guards led them deeper inside. The prisoners walked in silence now. Nobody was laughing anymore. Then they turned a corner and saw it. The thing that would haunt them forever. The assembly line. Moving. Never stopping. The assembly line shock. Bombers. B-24 Liberator bombers being built right in front of their eyes. But not slowly, not carefully, not one at a time. Fast. Incredibly fast. The prisoners watched as partially built aircraft moved down the line. Workers swarmed each plane, adding parts, installing systems, connecting wires. Everything was organized, efficient, like a machine building machines. One prisoner counted the stations, dozens of them. Each station did one specific job, then the plane moved to the next station. "It's like an assembly line for cars," someone whispered. "But these are bombers." The Japanese soldiers had never seen anything like this. Back in Japan, skilled craftsmen built planes carefully, slowly, with pride in their work. This was different. This was industrial, mass production, pure American efficiency. A guard noticed them staring. He smiled. "Want to know how fast we build these?" he asked. The prisoners didn't answer. They weren't sure they wanted to know. The guard told them anyway. 1 plane every 63 minutes. 1 plane every 63 minutes. The prisoners couldn't process it. That means they did the math in their heads. Roughly 1 plane per hour, 24 planes per day, over 700 per month from just this one factory. "How many factories like this do you have?" a Japanese officer asked quietly. The guard shrugged. Several. This is just one of them." The prisoners felt sick, actually physically sick. Japan's best factories produced maybe 1 plane per day, if they worked hard, if everything went perfectly. America was building 24 times that from one factory, and they had several of these factories. The math was terrifying, absolutely terrifying. One prisoner remembered his training. His commanders had told him America was weak, soft, unable to match Japanese determination and spirit. But spirit doesn't build bombers, factories do, and America had more factories than Japan had ever imagined. Then one prisoner noticed something else, something that shocked him even more than the numbers. The workers themselves. They looked nothing like he expected.
The workforce revelation. Teenagers, elderly men, women of all ages, people of different races working side by side. This was America's secret weapon. Not just machines, not just factories, people, all kinds of people contributing to the war effort. Back in Japan, only certain people could work in important factories, young men mostly, soldiers when they weren't fighting. But America used everyone, housewives who had never worked before, grandparents, kids barely old enough to drive, and they were good at their jobs, really good. One prisoner watched a woman, maybe 50 years old, welding part of a bomber's fuselage. Her hands moved with confidence, experience, skill. "How long has she been doing this?" he asked his translator. "Maybe 2 years," the translator replied. "Most of these workers were trained quickly when the war started." 2 years. Just 2 years of training and they could build bombers this fast? The prisoner felt his worldview crumbling. Everything he'd been taught was wrong. Then he asked the question that changed everything. "How long has this factory been running?" The timeline bomb. The translator talked to a supervisor, then turned back to the prisoner. "This factory opened in 1942, he said. "It's been running non-stop ever since." 1942. The prisoner felt his legs go weak. That was early in the war, very early, right after Pearl Harbor. While Japan was celebrating victories, America was already building this, planning this, creating an unstoppable industrial machine. The prisoner did more math. 3 years of production, at 24 planes per day, from just this one factory. Over 25,000 bombers from one factory in 3 years. Japan had built maybe 15,000 planes total during the entire war, all types, from all factories combined. "We lost," the prisoner whispered to himself. "We lost before we even started." Another prisoner overheard him. "What do you mean?" "The war. We lost the war in 1942. We just didn't know it yet." But there was something even worse, something the prisoner was about to realize, something about his own commanders. The betrayal. The prisoner's mind raced. His commanders must have known. They must have. Japan had spies, intelligence officers, people who reported on enemy capabilities. Someone must have told them about American factories, about American production, about American industrial might. Yet, they still attacked Pearl Harbor, still started a war they couldn't win. "They knew," another prisoner said, his voice shaking. "Our generals knew we couldn't win." Other prisoners heard this. The realization spread through the group like poison. They had fought, bled, watched friends die, all for a war their own leaders knew was unwinnable. Some prisoners started crying, openly, not from fear, from anger, from betrayal. A Japanese officer, a man who had been proud and strong, fell to his knees. His hands shook. My son died in the Philippines. For this? For a lie?" The American guards looked uncomfortable. They hadn't expected this reaction. One prisoner stood up. His face was red with rage. He demanded to see more. The full picture. The guards took them to other facilities. They wanted the prisoners to understand the full scope of American power. They visited a tank factory, thousands of Sherman tanks being produced, row after row after row. They saw an ammunition plant, bullets and shells being made by the millions. One factory made nothing but tires, just tires. It produced more rubber in 1 month than Japan's entire rubber supply for the whole war. "We make 1 Liberty ship every day," a guard mentioned casually. "Every single day, a whole cargo ship." The prisoners couldn't speak anymore. The scale was beyond comprehension. Japan had struggled to replace 1 battleship. America built cargo ships like toys every single day. These weren't just factories. This was an industrial empire, a sleeping giant that Japan had awakened with Pearl Harbor. One prisoner remembered a quote from Admiral Yamamoto, something about awakening a sleeping giant. Now he understood what that meant. But the worst was still coming. The final truth. The guards gave them the final numbers, the complete picture. America produced 300,000 aircraft during the war. Japan built 70,000. America made 88,000 tanks. Japan made a few thousand. America's GDP in 1944 was larger than Japan, Germany, and Italy combined. "Your country never had a chance," one guard said. "Not cruelly, just factually. This war was over before it started." The prisoners rode back to camp in silence. Complete silence. They weren't the same men who had left that morning. That morning they were proud soldiers of the emperor, believers in Japanese superiority. Now they were just men who had seen the truth. When they got back, other prisoners asked what they saw. The men who went just shook their heads. "We lost," one finally said, "not because we weren't brave, not because we didn't fight hard enough. We lost because we fought a country that could replace everything we destroyed 10 times over, and our leaders knew it all along." This is one of the most surprising WWII war facts you'll never forget. Japanese POW W2 stories reveal shocking truth. The hardships of POW W2 weren't just physical. Seeing American factories W2 destroyed them mentally. The American industrial war effort and American manufacturing capabilities were unmatched. Japanese prisoners of war stories show how W2 factory production exposed war factory secrets. The truth about Japanese versus American war industry was devastating. W2 history facts prove America built 300,000 aircraft while Japan managed 70,000. The American war machine had already won before battles even began.